In this video, we will learn how to find the missing sides of any special triangle, either a 30, 60, 90 triangle or a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So you really need to memorize these patterns. You should not have to refer to any cheat sheet to answer these questions. So the 45, 45, 90 triangle is the simplest. Notice it is an isosceles triangle, and as such, the two legs are the same. The hypotenuse is going to be the leg times radical 2. So for example, say I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, and I'm given that one side is 7. One leg, I should say. The hypotenuse is over here. First of all, they don't have to give me both angles. If they give me the 45, these two have to add up to 90, so that means this will automatically be 45. The two legs are always going to be equal, so the other leg is going to be 7, and the hypotenuse will be the leg times radical 2. So leg, hypotenuse, there you go. So it really doesn't get much harder than that. There are two things they can do to make it look a little trickier. One thing they sometimes do is they might give you something here that has a radical on it. So say if I told you that this was 7 radical 2, and you're supposed to find the other two sides. Well, like I said, the legs are equal. So if this is 7 radical 2, then this will be 7 radical 2 as well. But this side will now have to be 7 radical 2 radical 2. Alright? Because it's leg, 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 radical 2. So 7 radical 2, 7 radical 2, 7 radical 2, radical 2. And then you have to understand that radical 2 times radical 2 is just 2. So that leaves you with 7 times 2, which is 14. So the hypotenuse in this weird case would be 14, and the leg would be 7 radical 2, which seems backwards, but that's the way it is. So watch out for that to happen sometimes. The other thing they can do to make it tricky is, in the pattern we're expecting to have something with a radical 2 right here. But what if they give us something that doesn't have a radical 2 on it at all? So like if they gave us 8, for example. The way you approach that is, remember the pattern, alright? This would be, let's use variables. So say if this was n, and this would be n, then we're expecting this to be n radical 2, right? That means 8 must equal n radical 2. So if I wanted to find out what n is, I would need to divide both sides of the equation by radical 2. So I can do that, divide by radical 2 on both sides. That means that n will equal 8 over radical 2. And some teachers might accept this as an answer. So these two would be 8 over radical 2. Okay, the two legs would both be 8 over radical 2. But many teachers will want you to rationalize the denominator. So let's remember how to do that. You can rationalize by multiplying the top and the bottom by radical 2. So that's going to give you 8 radical 2. And in the bottom, radical 2 times radical 2 is 2. But now I've got 8 over 2, which is 4. So in the end, I'd have 4 radical 2. Okay, so you could say that these two legs are both 4 radical 2. Okay, so these are some of the things that come up special. So, alright, let's look at these actual problems. So in the first set of problems on this paper, we are given two triangles, but they are 45, 45, 90 triangles. And so we're, in the first case, we're given a leg, and the leg is 4. And we're supposed to find the hypotenuse and the other leg. So I think it would be useful to draw a picture of this. So we're given that one of the legs is 4, and we're supposed to find the other leg and the hypotenuse. Well, like we just discussed, if one leg is 4 and the other leg will also be 4, and then the hypotenuse will be 4 radical 2. So leg is 4, hypotenuse is 4 radical 2. Okay, so the other leg is 4, whoops, come back, and the hypotenuse is 4 radical 2. So that's what went down on the first triangle. Now for the second triangle. Now remember, it's hypotenuse, leg, leg. Alright, maybe I'll make a note of that on the screen somewhere. So this is the hypotenuse, and this is leg 1, and this is leg 2. Alright, hypotenuse, leg, leg. Anyway, we're given, again, one of the legs, and we're being asked to find the other leg and the hypotenuse. Now, at this point, we shouldn't even really need the picture, but I'm going to do it anyway. Alright, so the one leg is radical 3. So that's what they're giving us. Alright, so that's radical 3. So what should the other leg be? Yeah, it should be radical 3. The two legs should be the same. Now, what should the hypotenuse be? The hypotenuse should also be radical 3, but it should be radical 3 times radical 2. Alright, because the way the pattern goes, it goes leg, 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 radical 2. So here we have leg, 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 radical 2. But of course, radical 3 times radical 2 is radical 6. So the other leg is radical 3, and the hypotenuse is radical 6. Whoops, that's not it. What did I just say? So the hypotenuse was radical 6, and the other leg was radical 3. Alright, so those were our 45, 45, 90 right triangles. In the next set, it's the same type of thing, but we are supposed to deal with 30, 60, 90 triangles. So let's look back and remember how they work. For these, it's all about the short leg, which you will notice is across from the 30-degree angle. If you know the short leg, then you should be able to know everything else, because the hypotenuse should be double that, and the long leg should be the short leg times radical 3. Again, you should just memorize this. You should not have to look at any cheat sheet to know it. Alright, quick example of the way a 30, 60, 90 triangle works. To make it clear, this is the short leg. See how it's across from the 30. The hypotenuse will be double this, so the hypotenuse would be 14. The long leg should be the short leg times radical 3. So there's my short leg, and then there's the radical 3. So that's how that works. How could they make this different? Well, what if they gave us that the hypotenuse was 10, for example? What if they don't give us the short leg? Well, I should be able to get the short leg immediately because the hypotenuse is double the short leg. So that means the short leg would be 5. And then from that, I can get the long leg by going 5 radical 3. Again, they can make it extra tricky by doing things like instead of giving us something with a radical 3 here, they could give us something like 12 here. So that makes it a little tricky, because then it's like this. You know, we have n, and this should be double n, and this should be n radical 3. Well, n radical 3 should equal 12. So you have to think to yourself, if I wanted to get n by itself, I would divide both sides by radical 3. Okay, so that would give us that. So now I have n equals 12 over radical 3. You might want to rationalize the denominator by doing radical 3 in the top and bottom. That's a 3. So if you did that, to make it simpler, then you'd have 12 radical 3 over 3, because radical 3 times radical 3 is 3. But then that would make 4 radical 3. So then there you have your short leg. Okay, so that would be 4 radical 3. Once you have the short leg, then you know you double it to make the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse would be 8 radical 3. So that's the type of thing they can do to make this more interesting, shall we say. So let's see what actually happened. Okay, so triangle number 1. So let's see, what's the order here? Hypotenuse, short leg, long leg. So let me just make a note of that. So this is the hypotenuse. Alright, this is the short leg, and this is the long leg. Okay, so in this one they're giving us the short leg. So this is the super easy version. They're giving us that the short leg is 5. So that means the hypotenuse should be double this, should be 10. And the long leg, we should be 5, alright, from this, with a radical 3 on it. So 5 radical 3. So there you go. The long leg is 5 radical 3, the hypotenuse is 10. Okay, so that's it for that triangle. Okay, this admittedly looks a little uglier. Remember the order of things here. So this is the hypotenuse, and then it was short leg, long leg. So they're giving us the long leg is radical 3 over 2. Interesting. I think it might actually help you to understand, though, that radical 3 over 2, if you sort of put a 1 in front of it, to help you see that this is the same thing as 1/2 radical 3. Okay, that's the easier way to look at it. Okay, so if you realize that this is just 1/2 radical 3, then it's actually quite easy, because the long leg should be the short leg times radical 3. So that means the short leg must be 1/2. And then once you have the short leg, the hypotenuse must be double this. And double 1/2 is 1. So there you go. The hypotenuse is 1. The short leg is 1/2. Alright, hypotenuse is 1. Short leg is 1/2. Let's see. Well, what if you didn't notice that this would be the same thing as 1/2 radical 3? Is there any other way you could have gotten this? Just by looking at it as a regular radical 3 over 2. Well, let's take a look back. So if you just look at this as radical 3 over 2, then what you need to do is do the pattern. So the short leg is n, alright, the hypotenuse would be double n, and the long leg should be n radical 3. That means n radical 3 should equal radical 3 over 2. Let's do that off to the side. Alright, so n radical 3 should equal radical 3 over 2. So if I wanted to solve this, I would have to divide both sides by radical 3. So that's interesting. So if I divide both sides by radical 3, okay, so those will cancel out, so that's fine. Wow, so how do I divide a fraction by something? You could think of this radical 3 as like radical 3 over 1, you know what I mean? And then if you think of it that way, then maybe you'll realize that the thing to do is you multiply by the reciprocal. So this would be radical 3 over 2 times 1 over radical 3. But then you realize that the radical 3's will cancel each other out. So that's just going to be n is equal to 1/2, alright, the 1 over the 2. And that gets us back to where we were before, the shorter way. So now we would know that the n is 1/2, the short leg, and the double n is double 1/2, which is 1. So either way, but obviously the way I did it the first time is much shorter. So that is it for this video. Here endeth the lesson.